Greetings folks and welcome to Bob of All Trades. Before you is the HP Pavilion 14T. And if you spec this device outright, you can get a very nice laptop for your money. So allow me to reveal that in today's unscripted talking hands review. We're going old school. Let's do this. Starting with the build quality, you have a mostly aluminum chassis. The A cover is aluminum. The B cover bezel here is plastic. The C cover deck is aluminum. And the bottom panel D cover is also aluminum. Now, according to the spec page, this weighs 3.4 pounds, but I suspect that might be for the NVIDIA GPU solution. This one just has integrated graphics. We have 3.15 pounds, and with the power supply, it is 3.75 pounds. Now the I/O over on the left-hand side, you've got the combo headphone mic audio port right there. Not bad. We've got a USB 3, otherwise pretty clean on the left-hand side. Nothing on the rear except for the Pavilion logo. I will add though that if you do decide to use this in docked solution connected to a display, there's a little bit of ventilation here for the exhaust to expel while the intake is on the bottom panel here. So there is a little bit of breathing room. Over on the right-hand side, you have the barrel power port, which in our case has the 45-watt power supply. There's also a 65-watt power supply if you decide to get the NVIDIA graphics card on this. HDMI 2.0, USB 3. You have a USB-C for data. It'll do DisplayPort 1.4, and it will also charge via USB-C, which is really nice, and this little baby SD card reader. Now let's get into the 14T. We'll go over the specs of the machine and how you can spec this out differently for yourself. This can get a little bit tricky here as we have two screws, pretty basic, but there's no other visible screws. Underneath these sticky rubber feet, there is a screw on each corner. So we're gonna have to peel this up just a little bit, back the Phillips head screws out, and then begin to pry away at the chassis. To save time, I'm going to speed this up and edit it, and I'll see you on the inside. All right, now that we're inside, let's start with the battery. This is a 43 watt-hour unit, and honestly, it was really only good for around 4 hours, maybe give or take 30 minutes. If you're really tough on this and you're doing video editing unplugged, 2 to 2.5 hours. Don't expect much. You know, a lot of these laptops will feature batteries up to 76 watt-hours to get that 6 or 7 hours runtime, and this one, just a small battery. It is a Pavilion after all. We do have the NVMe slot. This is the single storage availability. It's just one slot. And this is an NVMe with decent read speeds, but the writes were a little bit on the slower side. Now over here is the 11th generation 10 nanometer Intel i5 4-core 8-thread CPU. You can spec this up with an i7, which is just a slightly higher clocked version of this, but it will still be 4 cores and 8 threads on these ultra low wattage chips. And this has the Iris Xe solution. So it's a decent CPU for what it's trying to do, and ultimately it's a very quiet laptop. More on that later. Now the network interface card is Realtek, and you can spec this out with a Wi-Fi 6 AX201 for an extra $10, so I highly recommend doing that. Here's where things get a little strange. So right now you can see 2 memory slots, and this is great. You can get this with, 4 and 4, 8 and 8. This is really awesome. I appreciate that. But if you were going to go with the dedicated NVIDIA graphics card all the way up to the MX450, doing so occupies some more space, and now we're only going to have a single memory slot. There's not even an additional slot that's soldered, so you're going to actually go from a dual channel solution like this to a single channel solution if you opt for the NVIDIA graphics card. Now, fortunately, the NVIDIA graphics card is not going to be too powerful, so single channel memory shouldn't be a bottleneck at impacting performance should you do some light gaming, but it's still not ideal from an overall performance standpoint should you really hammer on this device. Overall, this is what's on the inside. Let's proceed with usability. Now, opening the 14T with one hand, you will get some lift off in the front. The hinge is a little tight. It does come to life pretty quickly. There's also a fingerprint reader, right? Biometrics fingerprint reader for Windows Hello, should you wish to use it. The Elon trackpad is made of plastic, although it is smooth. It is using Windows Precision drivers. I had zero issues with it. It is not noisy. It did not rattle. Has good click symmetry. Overall, nice trackpad. It is a Pavilion laptop after all, so I can't expect glass, but I would wish for it. Now the keyboard. I like the keyboard. The travel was nice. There's zero key wobble. However, silver keys, silver keyboard deck, white LED backlighting. It can be hard to see the keys sometimes. This is maximum brightness of the LEDs. Can you see this? I'm trying to make some shadows here. That's maximum, that's minimum, and that is off. Now, a lot of Asus G14 users have experienced this with very little complaints, so I suspect maybe it's just me, but after using the Elite books for several weeks prior to putting my hands on the 14T, the black keys on the Elite books, oh, it's just an excellent contrast. Silver body, black keys, white LEDs, that's the way it should be. Silver, it looks nice, but then when you get down and dirty and start using it, it can be a little tricky. Now, when it comes to the speaker audio, Bang & Olufsen, right? We've got speakers on the left, speakers on the right. They do sound pretty good, to be honest, but real-time audio enthusiasts, for whatever reason, if you were going to use one of these laptops to do real-time audio, it failed latency mon repeatedly. On battery, on the power supply unit, it didn't matter if we had the performance slider all the way up, you could get about a minute or two into it and it would fail that. But as far as the speaker audio itself, have a listen to this. All right, next let's talk about this display. This is the premium display for this model. It's full HD, almost 400 nits, and has nearly 100% sRGB. This is a very nice display, and I could not recommend any other display for this laptop but this one here. After all, it's what you're going to be staring at. You're using the laptop. You want a nice display, and this is the best one that this laptop has at this time. You can also spec this down to the Full HD panel at 250 nits. They have a touchscreen one, I believe, as well. And then they have the 768p at 258 nits. I mean, this is like a 10-year-old type technology. So please try to opt out of that unless you absolutely have to just get the most budget of budget, but you respect the overall build quality here. Go for it, but this is the panel you want. The nearly 400 nits and about 100% sRGB, 1080p. This is a great display. Now, along this B cover here, you have the dual array microphone and the webcam up top. This is actually not too bad. Check it out. All right, so the 720p webcam and microphone are located at the top of the bezel. Of course, we are testing this on battery power. That's how we always test things. Keyboard strokes. Relatively quiet. There's a space heater running down here, so any kind of ambient noise that I can make possible for this test is actually activated at this moment. And overall quality here, it's decent. You know, given the current times, I like having the webcam, microphone quality, it's okay. Everything is located up top, just where I like it. Good, usable solution for the time being. Nice job. Okay, when it comes to the CPU performance, it works just like any CPU doing just normal stuff day to day, right? One of the things that I think a lot of people don't pay as much attention to until they get these laptops in their hands is, you know, fan acoustics and skin temperatures. And this is one of these things where HP has really prioritized that. And fortunately, 10 nanometer 11th generation Intel can do pretty nicely when it comes to offering nice fan acoustics and respectable skin temperatures, all without melting the laptop. Now, with that said, if you were to run, let's say, a CPU stress test such as Cinebench R23, okay, and you're going to notice that the CPU temperatures, they're going to get into the 90s for maybe 10 or 20 seconds. Meanwhile, the fans, you're not going to hear them, guys. The microphone is about 20 inches away from the exhaust. temperatures 92, 97. Once that short-term power limit kicks off, the temperatures are going to be somewhere around 65 to 71 degrees Celsius. The laptop is hardly going to make a sound. This thing at maximum load is quieter than almost every single gaming laptop I have in-house at idle. This is a very, very quiet device, and it's already cooling down 81 degrees, 79 degrees, and it's going to continue to drop. It has great idle temperatures, long-term load temperatures. Even right now, this thing, it does not get hot to the touch. The C cover and the D cover, so the keyboard deck and the bottom panel, will hit 40 degrees Celsius on their worst day. It typically hangs out at around 32. Very, very comfortable device. Now we're getting 76 degrees, and it's just continuing to inch its way down. 75 degrees, and it will continue to do so. It is so quiet. It's a really nice experience. And I don't mean to sound dramatic here, but it is one of these things where you can review this stuff till you're blue in the face and reveal all these things and check out these benchmarks. But the reality of it is, when you start to use your laptop, things you will start to notice after the honeymoon phase wears off is how nice is that screen. Oh gosh, this thing's getting pretty hot. You know what? This thing is really annoying because it's loud. Well, it's got a nice screen, it's cool to the touch, and it never, ever gets loud. So usability here overall is pretty nice. I just wish the keys themselves on the keyboard were black. Oh, and by the way, here's the benchmark scores of multi-core and single-core on Cinebench R23. All right, let's wrap it up. I've got a few things I want to talk about here. One, this is the spec, in my opinion, that you should be getting. The base model, but with the nicest display that you can get. That is an excellent value. Check the links in the description below. There are sales all the time. It might shock you. No joke. However, the keyboard itself with the silver keys and the white LED backlighting was very difficult to see. And should you desire speccing this up to, let's say, a dedicated NVIDIA graphics card, that's going to leave you with a single memory stick versus two, and you may have some performance discrepancies, and you'll certainly have, limited upgrade path when it comes to expanding your storage. Are most people going to need it that are looking for a laptop like this? Probably not, but it's better to have it and not need it than the other way around. And when it comes to the 11th generation Core i5 or i7, the 10 nanometer, this new Intel CPU, right, with the Iris graphics, it's fine, it's good. I really don't notice the difference between much of these CPUs in the real world anyway. When you use a laptop like this, the way most people are going to use a laptop like this, you don't really notice it. But let's not fool ourselves, right? I mean, if this had the Ryzen 4700U and I put that in the thumbnail, this thing would get 5 times the amount of clicks. And that should tell you something. All right, folks, that's going to do it. Hopefully you enjoyed this review of the Pavilion 14T. I really like this laptop. This one right here with this spec, no joke, I dig it. That's going to do it, folks. I'm Bob Voltrades. Peace out.